Continuing the Sefer V'Ani Tamid Imach, we're in the third Shaila, Daf Ayin Tes, where he's talking about how a person could have simcha and menucha and sipuk from his davening. So before we continue in the top of the Sefer, in the bottom, he brings down from the Sefer Siach Sarfei Kodesh, which is, statements and maisim and shmuas from the Kotzker, Chedush Arim. So he says, Pam achas is snatzel lefnei Chedush Arim echad. One person was complaining to the Chedush Arim she'ini margish tam b'tefillah. He doesn't feel like his davening is really worth much. He doesn't really enjoy it that much. He doesn't really feel engaged. Heishav loy. So the Chedush Arim said like follows: Im yoimru litein loch hayin rav ayispal. He says, let's say I were to promise you a certain amount of money, a lot of money, but you don't daven anymore. No more davening. You get paid a lot of money. Im tov v'tisratzel zeh. Would you agree? Would any from Jew agree to never daven again for a lot of money? Amashar loy. Even someone who doesn't really enjoy davening that much, to say I'm not going to daven for $1 million, who would do such a thing? Sometimes you don't want to daven, and sometimes people forget to daven, but to agree to not daven in exchange of cash, you're not going to do it. Even millions and millions of dollars, I'm not going to do that. So said the Chedush Arim, he says, that means that your davening is worth a lot. Meaning even when you're not enjoying it, but to you, if you were given the choice, you would not trade that for a lot of money. Then that shows you that it's worth a lot to you. And that itself, he says, that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at it as well. Even if it's not perfect, on the contrary, HaKadosh Baruch Hu enjoys. There's a certain enjoyment that you get dafka from people that push themselves when it's not as enjoyable. He brings down on the top something for the Sefer Chassidim. Sefer Chassidim is one of the Rishonim. And I think if people would hear this, they would think it's like a Chassidish Amaisa, and they would think that it's Shalek Halach. But look at the words Sefer Chassidim. This is Siman Yud Ches. Sefer Chassidim says as follows: if you're shocked or wondering, there are people that mispronounce, they don't pronounce Hebrew very well, and they kairin ches hey. Sometimes they do a ches instead of a hey instead of a ches. Shin samach, they confuse a shin and samach. Kuf tes, reish dalet. There are people that don't pronounce the words so well. Eich mispalim. So he asks himself, how do you daven? Eich kairin b'Torah. How is their davening worth anything if they're mispronouncing words? I've been asked this recently by someone. There's some people that they just daven quickly, or they stumble on the words, and the words just don't flow very well. He says, don't wonder by this. Why? Look at the words of the Sefer Chassidim. The one who created us, who knows the depth of every heart, but he's really interested in your heart. That your heart should be complete with Hashem. And if there's someone who mispronounced words, again, we're not talking about someone who's reckless, who doesn't care. We're talking about people. They just language is not their best. They stutter, they stammer. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks as if you spoke properly. And there are Jews that say Psukei Zimra out loud very beautifully. And they don't know the meaning behind it. They say the words, they close their eyes, but they don't really know. If you'd ask them, you'd be that guy, you'd go over to them and say, well, what does this pasuk mean? What does this pasuk mean? When I was in yeshiva, I remember there was like a Rosh Yeshiva, not my yeshiva, a Rosh Yeshiva, where part of his faher for the Bachrim was he would pull out a siddur and he would find the pasuk in Psukei Zimra and he'd say, what does this mean? And most of us don't know what it means. I don't know. I always have a tilm. I don't know what it means. And then he would tear the guy down. Like, so what are you saying if you don't know what it means? So Sefer Chassidim says, the tefillah of those Jews that are at least putting their heart into it, it's mamish niskabel to Hashem like a reich nichayach, like a beautiful aroma. And Hashem has a tremendous simcha. Look how beautiful that song is. That at least he's trying to sing. That the person is skipping, even if his words are skipping, but it's ahava, it's coming from a place of love. And therefore, even if a person looks at his davening, he says, listen, he's trying. And he says, listen, I don't know. Do I know the meaning of it all? No. But you know what, though? In the eyes of Hashem, Rahman Aliba boy, as long as you put in your heart, you put in an effort, that's the greatest zemer HaKadosh Baruch Hu.